Good evening. Hi, guys. Sorry to come say hi. Busy running in here.
No problem.
I'm gonna call the meeting to order right at 5 o'clock, and in the spirit of reconciliation, the town of Diamond Valley acknowledges and pays tribute to the traditional territories of the peoples of Treaty 7, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprised of the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai First Nations, the Dene of Tsuut'ina First Nations, and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations, and the Métis Nation of Alberta. So thanks for coming in early. In the event of emergency, TJ, the boys are here to let us know where to go, but out either of the doors that they point us to, make sure our cell phones are on vibrate or silent, please and thank you. And the washrooms are just in the back, behind everybody. Okay. Let's move along to the adoption of the consent agenda. Anything that anyone wants to pull from said agenda to have discussion about? Everybody's okay with that? Okay, I would take a motion. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? Perfect, that's great. Thank you for that. And I will move for the adoption of the regular agenda. Do we have any additions that we need?
We do not.
Okay, I saw Councilor Martin put her hand up. Okay.
Maybe not.
Motion on the floor, all those in favor? Perfect, and with that being said, we are gonna move into close. This is for a legal matter. ATIA section 23, and we'll be in close for an hour prior to the opening of our regular meeting at 6 o'clock. And at this time, I take one final motion to go into close.
Go to close.
Councilor Fleming gives me that. All those in favor? And we'll give Iris a minute and she'll give us a thumbs up. We're started. Okay, good evening, everyone. We're back. 6:06. I'm going to call the meeting back to order. Councilor Bain gave us the motion to come out of closed right around 6 o'clock. We were dealing with some legal matters, some updates from some council and not us as council, but some legal counsel and our fire chief and support staff about this. So we're going to move on to the open part of our agenda and jump right into question period. And I'm going to open and close it because at this time we don't have any questions.
Correct, your worship.
Okay, so open and close at 6:06. We're going to continue right down the to action items, and we're going to start at 9.1. Request for removal of property tax penalty roll 623330. Assuming that the council has read it, and I will always assume that council has read their agenda because you guys are the best. I'm just going to stick handle this right over to CO Davies if any other comments, and then I'll likely just take a motion straight away, council. So over to you.
Thanks, your worship. Council has any questions? We've got these two here.
Okay, perfect. Council, you have a, this is the first of two. Let's start off with Councilor Martin.
Just one question. Lisa, when a new resident is going to, somebody new is going to move into town, do they typically get a welcome package that would, like in an email, that would include like forms for the move-in tip or anything like that?
No, they do not. All that information is on our website. Now, if they contact the town, an email can be sent with links to the forms. I can tell you often we don't actually know who's purchased a home until land titles comes through, which there's a bit of a delay, anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks, depending on what's going on. So many times we have no way of reaching out prior to land titles.
Nor should we, your worship?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
This
yeah.
is a private property issue.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you get the move-in form.
They have to request it,
Yeah.
or look at the form on our website, which submits automatically to administration.
Okay, thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, and I can actually speak to that, Councilor Martin, because I sent one of these letters in probably about 10 years ago, and I asked for the same thing, and I said,
you have my PO box number, you have my email. I said, this is none of our business. This is all you. And I was too young and naive, and not to say that I didn't know any better, but I didn't. And I was denied by Mayor Glenn Fagan at the time. And it still burns a hole in my pocket, but it just speaks to the responsibility of home ownership. And like CAO Davey mentioned, these are private matters, and the town only has so much responsibility in terms of access to private information too, right? You can share emails and PO box numbers, but it's not the town's responsibility.
No, it isn't for them to track it down, but I
Yeah.
just wanted just to make sure that.
100%, yeah. And part of my letter was, hey, could you send me something to have let me know? Because this went on for a year, and they're like, no. And I said, okay, fair enough, all right. Guess I better go put my big boy pants on. So, for lack of a better term, because yeah, it's unfortunate, and especially in this economy, it's difficult. But we were pretty much in the same position as these two individuals here when Carly and I bought, and had to pay it. And yeah, so okay, so council, I don't know, any other questions in regards to this? Does anyone else want to speak to it? If not, I'm prepared to take motions, and we can talk more to it when the motions are on the table.
I'll give you the motion.
Okay, what would that be?
That council direct administration to inform the property owner for roll number 623330 that the penalty amounts charged will not be credited to their account.
Okay, thank you for the motion.
A second.
Okay.
You don't need
You don't have to, but in good faith. Okay, yeah, no, you're all right. Any other thoughts, comments, council? Okay, perfect. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, and that's carried unanimously. Yeah, I don't think in my time in chair or on council, I've seen any of these unfortunately, it's just an unfortunate circumstance, but I don't think any of them have ever been rectified. Okay, moving on. 9.2, request for removal of property tax penalties, rolls 56000 and 60700. Information's right in front of you. Do you want to lead us off, Councillor Gordon, on this one, or?
Yeah, this one's a little bit more challenging, only because of the manner in which these were missed. The challenge I see here, and I'm going to make a motion after this, is to consider, I think there's reference made to some health challenges that the person had in missing that. So I did some research on this, and the city of Calgary actually has a compassionate property tax penalty relief program, which I thought was kind of unique. And then a summer village up near Sylvan Lake, not the Sylvan Lake one, but the one just north on Sylvan Lake, I think it's Jarvis Bay. They actually have a specific policy in place for their property tax penalty relief policy. And so I've got a motion that I think I'll bring forward after we discuss this one and make a decision on that. So that, because I think Cindy and I have batted this around for the last 8 years on council. When these come up, seems like every year we get one or two of these, and we don't really have a policy in place that really deals with it strictly. We reference the MGA and the elements therein, but we don't have a specific policy that directs administration, which makes it far easier for administration to deal with rather than bouncing it through different channels and whatnot. So I'll make that motion after we discuss that.
Who else wants to say anything? Well, go ahead. Yeah, please. Sounds like you two. I thought you guys were just gonna go right at it right now.
Oh, yeah, no, not indexing. I read through Calgary's, and I do like it. It's very, very small. Like very few cases
Yeah.
for the compassionate, but I think they're, death, hospitalization, like they're pretty extreme. It's not new move-ins,
No.
Yeah.
right? And I do like that. It needs to be, I'm always more on the compassionate side, right, Hazel? So I do like having something, but I also like these to be handled. Us give the policy and administration takes care of it, rather than these coming one by one back to council, so.
Hazel?
I thought there was something in was it one of our bylaws in the sense that it would go to the CAO first? Like on the water, like if there was a water penalty, that would be up to the CAO to waive that. But I thought there was maybe something on the.
Go ahead, Lisa.
So we do have something in the water bylaw
Yeah.
that allows administration to handle these, so they don't come to council. I just had a brief conversation with Berna because the MGA states that council is the only authority that can reverse tax penalties. That's why these are coming to you. So we would need to verify that you have the authority to delegate that to administration.
I think we've been here before. Yep.
Yeah,
It feels
I'm gonna be
familiar.
specific in the motion, though. We
Yeah.
haven't really made a motion. So, if you will, I'll give the motion that is here, fully understanding the issues that we have here, but the danger of precedent we've talked about in the past. So therefore, council directs administration to inform the property owner for roll numbers 56000 and 60700 that the penalty amount or amounts charged will not be credited to their account.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. I believe too, it's worth saying, I think since amalgamation, we've actually extended the deadline for the penalties. Yeah, Lisa's telling me yes.
Yeah.
Used to be in July
No, it's on this thing.
and now it's August 19th. So yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. And we decided to keep it that way to give residents more time to organize things. So, okay. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion on the floor? All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Jonathan.
All right, because we don't have a policy that deals with compassion and different elements, I'm gonna make a motion here that council directs administration to create a property tax penalty relief policy using material but not restricted to Calgary's Compassionate Property Tax Penalty Relief Program. I'll say that again. Using material but not restricted to Calgary's Compassionate Property Tax Penalty Relief Program. I'll say it again. Are we good?
Yeah.
One more time. So the council directs administration to create a property tax penalty relief policy, which includes but is not limited to material from Calgary's Compassionate Property Tax Penalty Relief Program and the Summer Village of Jarvis Bay's Property Tax Penalty Relief Program. Property Tax Penalty Relief Program. It's actually a very, and I'll speak to that in just a moment. I like both of them. As Cindy indicated, the Calgary one is, so Calgary's is called Compassionate Property Tax Relief Program. If we want to add that one in there, it's slightly different. Thanks, Iris. The reason I like Jarvis Bay's, both of them talk about the benefit of the one in Calgary. It highlights critical illness as a reason being. And so I'm going to put my insurance hat on here. Most insurance companies, when it's a critical illness policy, a comprehensive CI policy will have 25 or 26 critical illnesses. If you went down to a limited critical illness policy, it's the 6 core ones. So we could have a little bit of flexibility there. But it gives a reason being, I'm just using myself as an illustration. Back in 2023 was my first heart attack. If that happened during tax season, I mean, I'm on tips, but if that happened during tax season, I could see the importance of having compassion. And I think that would be nice to see in there. And the Jarvis Bay one extends it more just beyond compassion. They bring in a couple of other conditions that I think would be worth council reviewing in a way that then hopefully, and in Jarvis Bay's one, and I'll close with this, they actually have where the conditions are stated where administration can make the decision if the conditions are met. And if not, then it can proceed through the MGA and bring it to council. But obviously we'll debate that when it's done.
Do you have any idea when you want this brought back?
There's actually really, I would say clearly there's no rush on that until this time next year. So maybe if we could have this brought back for council review September, or is that too far down the road? Like, where's your budget cycle? Because that might be, we don't want to catch you in that.
Like, may I suggest that we bring this back to you or even with the tax rate bylaw?
Sure.
So that,
Great idea.
that you
I'll
have this in place before we set the tax rate.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Sydney?
I fully support it. I think there needs to be a compassionate thing. My only concern is that we've now said no to this property owner that may or may not qualify for what was passed in future. Obviously, I would like it in, for the next tax season. I do feel bad because this is somebody that's brought it forward. Identified a weakness, hospitalization, if it fell within that time period. I'm not sure if it does or not, but yes, if, I had a heart attack the day before my taxes were due, it would be a problem, right? So it's identified a problem. So I feel bad saying that we've said no to this, and then we passed it something that would have helped in a couple of months. I think there needs to be an exception to this one. It's that if they did happen to qualify in the future one, that it could be, but I think going forward, it needs to be a hard no, that it's going to be effective for the next tax season. But I would consider, but I know I'm more of the softie on this one, that this one be considered again, because I know once we pass a motion that it's done. So I don't know how everyone else feels.
Yeah, if I may, through the chair, I understand your compassion there. One of the conditions, I'm not sure which of the two bylaws there have it, but, or policies, pardon me. One of the conditions was the property must be lived in. And here we have two tax rolls. So one of the properties wouldn't be lived in. So, that's why I made that motion to deny the support on this request because of the two properties.
Okay, so we already voted on the last one. That's your motion?
That's my motion.
Okay. Any further questions or comments, council? Okay, all those in favor? And all those opposed? Okay, 5-2 passed. So we'll see that again shortly. Okay. Let's move right along. 9.3, request for funds to be returned to the Court of King's Bench from operating reserves. Did I miss something? That's next.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's next. I will, again, it's a fairly short read, clear understanding, has to deal with the conversation that we just had in part. And CAO Davey, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
No further comments, your worship.
Okay, council, it's in front of you. If there's no discussion, I'll be happy to take a motion. If anyone would care to. Councilor Bain, go ahead.
The council direct administration to use operating reserves to pay the amount of $67,379.45 to the Court of King's Bench. And I have no further comment.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's the second one. Go down. There you go. Okay, council, questions, comments after Councilor Baines? No? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Okay, and if anyone is online and wants to read about that motion, it is in the agenda. We're not trying to skip through anything without letting you know what's going on. It is all there for you to read. Okay, let's move 9.4, 2026 waste rates. This has to do with our garbage collection, I believe. Yes, okay. It's here, it's in front of you. I'll pass it over to you, and if you want to bounce it back to council for questions, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, thanks, your worship. Yeah, Lisa's here. Do you have any opening comments or just questions?
Sure. So I did work the numbers on the waste rates, and as it stands right now with the data I have to date since the bi-weekly started, which was April 1st, I'm suggesting that the garbage rate remain the same. Right now, the trend I'm seeing is the tonnage is down with the bi-weekly collection, and the organics tonnage is increased, which is a good sign. Again, I have limited data. It's about half a year. So my recommendation is that we review this annually, just like water and wastewater. I would bring it back to you in the fall to have rate changes in effect for January. The increase to organics is quite small, in my opinion, and it will make an impact to your tax rate increase, pardon me.
Yeah, because we don't have to rely on reserves to offset.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, and that was a small variance, as you mentioned, Lisa, I think 15,
yeah.
yeah, right around 15,000.
Yeah, without the increase, based on my best estimate on tonnage right now.
Awesome, thank you, Lisa. Yeah, I support it. I think we should be moving to full cost recovery for as many things as feasibly possible without putting too much pressure on our residents. We do a lot, I believe the previous council, the council that was elected after amalgamation, and I'm hopeful that this council remains somewhat steadfast in this approach, is that we shouldn't be taking from reserves to offset costs from other departments, whether that's operating, well, it mostly just this operating. So I'm certainly in favor of this. I think that these are the responsible decisions that our residents would like to see. Even though 15,000 isn't a lot, it could be a greater number next year. And I think it's prudent of us to make these small increases when it's possible. And yeah, it's really not that bad. So I'll let any other counselor speak to it, or I would be happy to entertain a motion that we can vote on. Cindy.
Yeah, I fully support it. Thank you for bringing back the numbers. And yes, we want to avoid like having to do a really big increase to catch up later. So
Yeah.
I'm fully in support of option one, that council direct administration to bring the rates and fees bylaws back to the December 17th meeting with the organics rate changed to $18 per unit per billing cycle for January 1st, 2026, and draft 2 of the budget updated to reflect these changes.
Awesome. Thank you, Councillor Holiday. Council, any last questions?
I do have a question.
I guess you can ask.
And so I know you've been watching the tonnage and what gets, what not. So there's that audit done a couple of summers ago where we found far too much organics was placed in our black bin. Have we seen an improvement in that? I mean, how, where are we at with that increased amount?
So there has not been another garbage audit done, so I can't speak to what's being put in or not in the waste cards. All I can do is look at the number for tonnage. So, I mean, there could be several things impacting this number, but the trend I see since April 1 is that garbage tonnage has reduced, organics has increased. So I'm making an assumption that we should continue to see that reduction in waste tonnage when I created these rates.
Perfect.
Math is mathing,
Math is math.
without picking through anyone's garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to put that on Craig right now. So you have any free time? Middle of winter, you can collect some garbage. That's great, thank you. Yeah, and be a lot heavier.
What happened?
Yeah, no, this is great. Okay, motions on the floor. Final comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried unanimously.
Final comment.
Sure.
I don't know if anyone's been to the town of Banff where they have, near their garbage cans, they have a breakdown of what's recycle, and they have some really, really nice cute signs. It's kind of like the receipt idea, but they do it for waste. And I don't know if has anyone noticed this?
No.
They're great. Okay, something like that on our website someday would be nice when we had time, but just wanted to say, if you're ever in Banff, they're really, really kind of a cool thing.
Okay.
Yeah, let's we could just jump into, the Canmore secondary houses. Did anyone read about that today? Man. Some upset people online. Okay, let's keep going. So that one's done. 9.5. Hello, Carrie.
Hello.
We are gonna jump into land use bylaw rewrite scope and budget. So, yeah, Carrie, take us through it, and certainly by no means do you have to go line by line, but if you want to give us the high notes, I'm sure council will have some questions.
Of course.
Thank you.
So in terms of purpose, background and context, it's there. Really why this is in front of you today is going into that last iteration of budget on the 17th, getting the number down for the land use bylaw rewrite. You'll see some process overview as well as the strategic considerations and budget considerations, which is where I'm hoping to get some feedback from council tonight, just to finalize those numbers in the budget going forward, and so that I can finalize my RFP to get it actually posted very early in the new year and get this going. So the cost can vary widely. You can do kind of a base land use bylaw for 150. You can do a little bit better for 250. You can go wild and have it cost basically as much as you want. Some of the considerations are the base contract, which is, the legislated minimums. Then the engagement. So there is a minimum amount of engagement required. The very, very least is a public hearing at adoption of the bylaw. I would not recommend that.
Right.
So I've broken down some of the costs for things that might be considered in terms of that engagement plan. The design, visualization, and mapping, there's always going to be some of that in our templates, in our land use map, in some diagrams to show how we calculate setbacks, that kind of thing. We should be considering potential for sending it for legal review, to see if it is defensible, if it has any holes. And it would also be nice to have some implementation training and a launch with potentially a workshop or user guides or something of that nature. These can be very dense documents that are maybe not user friendly if you want to build a garage in your lifetime. And so some of those user guides might be a value add for members of our community in that regard.
Okay.
The nice to haves that I've identified are also kind of that training and launch. It's the how far do we want to go with it, as well as permitting software. So once we have the new land use bylaw, it would be beneficial for a lot of parties to have some automations and standardization in the workflow, so that we can process things faster and have it be more consistent across the board, so that developers know what they're looking at. So in terms of the elements that we consider to be high returns on investment, the legal review, we want to adopt something that out the gate is defensible. The workshops, again, to build that capacity and understanding. The plain language and logical structure to improve usability, obviously, so that goes back into the formatting kind of component. Targeted public engagement and early engagement. So we've done a lot of engagement thus far with our MDP. And I think that if we can narrow it down into maybe like 4 to 8 key topics of concern, the council's like, you know what, on the ground, when it comes to development, I keep hearing that signage is an issue. Then maybe we do targeted engagement with businesses and concerns over signage, or something of that nature. Because we already know what our vision and goals and kind of broad objectives are through the MDP. This is where the rubber hits the road. We get into the weeds a little bit.
Okay.
And then the high return on investment from my perspective is, again, the digital functionality and the permitting software to get the flows faster, automated, consistent.
Okay.
We don't necessarily need anything that is highly graphic or pretty. I need it to be functional at the end of the day. Pretty is beautiful. If you want to spend the money on it making pretty, cool, that's your prerogative.
Right.
I don't really see a lot of value in doing the same MDP open house thing again, that broad. We've just done that.
Okay.
And then there's a lot of consultants out there right now that are pushing a lot of visualization tools. And at this point, in writing my RFP, I'm not stressing that at all. I don't think that for a community of our size, that adds a lot of value.
Okay.
So what I'm looking for is, again, kind of council's direction in terms of the budget level, the scope, where you want to see the energy in this project that would make you feel that this is very successful when it comes back in front of you.
Great. All right, appreciate the work that you put into this and really like seeing the low end versus the high end here. I'll pass this over to council and we'll kick back and forth some questions. Hey, Councilor Martin.
Carrie, on the permitting software, how much staff time would the software save compared to the current process?
It's hard to put a quantitative number without having it in-house. I talked to some colleagues where they transferred. Just having a single bylaw to begin with will save time. It'll get some adjusting and getting used to in the beginning. If we can launch a permitting software simultaneously, then the learning curve just gets really big at the front end and then evens out. The challenge is if we do new land use bylaw and then 2 years later we do permitting software, then there's another kind of spike in learning and it slows things down again. Which is why I'm bringing it forward at this point in time for council's consideration. The automation features are what should speed things up. So where we have a new build in an R1, we'll have what the regulations are, and it's just simply a tick, 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 yep. Create permit, and then it'll have all standardized conditions, and it should be quite a bit faster than what we currently have. Similar with subdivision circulations and reviews, because it can all be in the program. It can prompt staff what they're looking for, and we don't have to create those templates like what we're doing right now. And what we do have right now, we can just utilize that in the new software, because things like the matters related to subdivision and development regulation, hopefully the province doesn't keep changing it, and we can just put the work we have now.
And will it be compatible with our accounting program that we have?
So the two programs will likely be separate from each other. It'll be a database that is specific to permitting, is the intention at this point.
And it would be done, you're looking at 2027?
The end all be all that my heart would be so happy is if it was coming online as we're approving the land use bylaw, because then we go, yep, this is what's approved. Let's convert it into the database. Let's make the templates off of the new bylaw that we have and roll it.
And just one last question. You have for the website for an update, like $200 to $600 per time. Can that be brought in-house, or is that just through the consultant?
That's a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. So that acknowledges any staff time that a consultant takes to do visuals, to do wording. It's coordinating through the project manager out to our other staff to update the website, to make sure that the old information is taken down. It sounds like it should be so simple, but there's a lot of man hours that
goes
actually go into it.
Yeah, it's not just putting a document.
And that's what the dollar amount values is, the man hours.
It's predominantly man hours. There's gonna be some small deliverables in terms of the visual whatever that we put up.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate measuring that anyways, because oftentimes we overlook administration as free time, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's not.
Yeah, yeah.
We know it's not. Great questions, Councilor Martin. Okay, let's keep going. Council? Anything further? What do you want to see? What are people looking at? Yeah, Councilor Holiday.
The permitting software is absolutely critical in my mind as far as moving forward. Like, just having gone through the development permit process myself, just like email and trying to send all these things and you're not sure if you have everything, and sometimes it's required, but sometimes it's not, so you're not sure if you have to do it or not. Like, it just has to be clear and automated and like not as burdensome as it currently is. To me, that is more important than, you know, public consultation where you have 6 people show up, right? So like we do have a public hearing for it for a reason. So, yeah, but if you can just, for the new councilors and the rest of us here especially, like land use bylaws, every single town has one. They're gonna be starting, you know, whatever firm that we pick to do this job is gonna be starting from some generic template. Why don't people just copy from another town? Like, what is it that makes our town unique? What's the challenges? Why is it $130,000? Up to $130,000 document? Can you go through like
Yes.
why you can't just take, say, Didsbury, who's our size, and plop it on
Yes.
Turner Valley? Explain that.
Yes, so this is part of that MGA thing, why every municipality has a council and why you have certain levels of autonomy to govern locally, is that the province has identified that each local municipality is its own unique entity and should be able to decide its own fate to an extent, which is why you can pass all sorts of bylaws. The idea that we could just take even, let's say, Turner Valley's bylaw, it's pretty, it was redone kind of recently. Could we just say that that's our new bylaw? Yes, yes, we could. Do I have probably a 17-page omnibus amendment that would come forward if that was your direction? Yes, that takes a lot of effort in and of itself. What also would be helpful moving forward in terms of direction is if council has a preference of if they want to have a lot of regulatory requirements, or if you want to be looser with your regulatory requirements, or if there's areas that you think like, no, we definitely need to tighten this up, but I don't really care what they do with this thing over here. And so that's kind of where my mind is going with those like 4 to 8 topical like topics that we might want to tackle. So development in flood areas, flood prone areas. That to me is significant in terms of regulation and how much or how little council wants to exert their will on the private property owners. Because you're balancing those private property rights with the overall good of the community and public infrastructure. So that one to me is something that you can't just take Didsbury because they don't have the same flood issues we have. I wouldn't even necessarily take either of our current bylaws because I don't think they're awesome. Could we work on them? Yeah. But do I think that maybe we start from the ground up on some of these things? Probably. Because again, it's a lot of these, the 2 bylaws that we have and a lot of the bylaws in circulation that are the templates that consultants do use. A lot of them are based on the provincial template from the 60s. And we are not in 1960 anymore, if you hadn't caught on. So it's something that's more modernized and more responsive to our modern ways of living, working, playing, developing, and our financial structures, our infrastructure that we have to actually build on.
Thanks, Karen. That helps.
I'm curious which of the 2 you do like better.
It's neither here nor there.
They both have strengths and weaknesses in different areas.
Kind of related to that, so as you've been talking, I just had some fun with artificial intelligence and Copilot. And using our internal Copilot, and you've probably done this as well. What can we do to, our consultant's gonna use templates, they're gonna use what's going on in other communities. We want to be unique to our community with our MDP that we've just done. You just identified that there's parts of the current land use bylaws that we like and there's parts we don't like. So why wouldn't we start with looking at consolidating them, doing that work first to see what parts we can agree on and then go from there? Because we're not, as much as it's a great idea to start fresh and start new with a blank slate, that would work if we're focusing on just developing communities like potentially what Coast Crossings will be or our Greenfield, let's call it that. But we're not just working in Greenfield, especially when council's direction with the MDP is to focus on infill. So why wouldn't we invest some of our own time to consolidate what we have now to get it to a place that we can work with and then move forward with a consultant. And then that leads me to another thing. I really hate having numbers public. Because as a consultant, you know what you're gonna do. They're gonna look at the minutes from tonight and look at the agenda and see the numbers and they're gonna meet them. And so we kind of put the cart before the horse with identifying the costs, when I would have preferred having an RFP that says, this is what we want, what are you gonna cost us? Because now the consultants are fully aware of what they can spend.
My understanding was that these numbers came from consultants.
Well, that's the issue. You know, I would prefer this is the ask in an RFP. These are the 4 to 8 things that we're looking for, and then come back, because we were shocked by how much the signs came back at, right? We thought we had a $20,000 budget and they were coming up at 80 to 100 grand.
Mhm.
So this is the challenge I always find when we ever have an RFP in a discussion like this, when we're discussing numbers, it always seems magically that the consultants come back with, oh, look at that. That's right what they expected us to give. So that's a personal frustration I've had for 8 years.
I'm gonna start with the second and go back to the first. So these cost ranges were taken from proposals from the MDP. So these are what the costs were provided from consultants through that procurement process. The RFP for the land use bylaw has not gone out. There is no budget that is publicly out there. The intention of tonight is, should there be an upper limit? Probably. But does that necessarily mean that they need it? Not necessarily. If we provide a good scope, which is the intention hopefully of tonight of, is there anything that you're like, yes, this is a absolute, or I don't really care about this part so much, then I can put the scope into RFP and see what they come back with. It'll still be competitive in that nature. The reason that I'm hesitant to take the time to take our current bylaws and mush them together is that alone is probably a 6-month process by the time we go line by line and reconcile. And then we have to still come back on the big picture items. Do we want 15 residential districts? Because my very strong recommendation is no, we absolutely do not.
Yeah.
And so if we just mush them together right now, we're not necessarily catching those things along the way, or we are, and then we're still writing a new bylaw from the ground up. Just with staff time, that's, it's gonna take longer.
So I asked it to harmonize and it came back with 4 residential districts. So that's the joy of AI. We can use it as a tool to enhance, but not to replace. And so it's just something that I've been exploring. I do it a lot at work.
And I do see
So-
that, Councillor Gordon, the challenge is that validation part
I
that
agree.
takes a lot of time, because again, I have to go through word by word, line by line of what's in this bylaw, what's in that bylaw, trying to understand. Council, do you want 4 resident, do you want 1 residential district?
So to answer that, if I may, and I'll use Turner Valley's, where we amended our land use bylaw a few years back, we were reducing our districts. And where I live was an R1X, and it had different side setbacks, remember? And the first year and a half on MPC, when the real property reports were bringing forward, we had to provide them a variance, because going from an R1X down to an R1, there was a difference with side yard setbacks. And so everything was not according to the rule. So this is the challenge I see with starting fresh. My concern is it's going to create more issues, because that was missed by several experts and consultants.
And it's already been flagged as something for consideration in the rewrite. We know that anytime there's redistricting, we end up with compliance challenges.
Yeah.
And so it's then again, the question of, do you do best practice? Do you go to your lowest common denominator in your current districts? So it's not as simple as just saying, here, Copilot, mush these together. You have to use your professional and technical discretion
Sure.
in the matter.
So one follow-up and final follow-up to that is, you asked earlier about how detailed do we want the land use bylaw? Do we want it full of regulation, line by line and whatnot? Personally, I don't. And this is why. Using the R3 on George and McLeod as an illustration, the permitted uses were apartments, townhouses, row houses. Discretionary use was duplexes and accessory or secondary suites. So we created a hurdle, which when it came to NPC, we're like, sure, let's put in duplexes. Why would you have duplexes when you can have townhouses? And we said, well, the secondary suites, that's part of the thing that we want to encourage. So that's where the consideration I want us to be is much more flexible, that has a greater degree of permitting, that as opposed to discretionary. I want as much permitted as possible, makes your work easier. In my opinion, a developer looks at that and says, well, that's permitted, perfect, let's go forward. That's my personal take on it.
I'm trying very hard to keep my personal things, so I want your input.
No, I was just gonna say, just listening to Carrie, and these are kind of rhetorical, so you don't feel the need to answer them out loud if you don't want to. The 6 months of staff time, I don't know, I don't really want to know the dollar sign for that. I don't know
Right.
how much we pay our planning department.
Yeah.
It'll
Yeah.
probably be more expensive than paying for the report itself to set aside our planning department for 6 months to go through this. And then at the same time during those 6 months is how much focus actually goes to planning because
Yeah.
they're working on consolidating 2 land use bylaws.
Yeah.
So we need to be prudent in how much money we're spending, but we also have to make sure that we're not burdening administration with cumbersome objectives because we're trying to save money at the same time. But I certainly appreciate you bringing that up. I know that it's been something that we've been discussing. Ashley's brought it up using ChatGPT or Copilot to blend some of these things. Ultimately, I think the further you go towards using these types of resources, you're probably gonna end up spending more money on the back end with legal and with fine tuning it. I think it would take longer to go over it. With all that being said, I don't know if anyone else has any questions, but maybe in the best interest of checking a box for Carrie is why don't we just go through these boxes? And then that way, if you have anything to say about it, great. And then Carrie can just take a few notes as we go down and say, hey, do we want to do this? Do we want to do that? Do you guys feel okay with that? Does that make the most sense? Yeah.
Can I start with the very, very high level question
Sure.
of like, no regulation, Wild West, and lock this sucker down where council's at?
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, I'm interested to know that too. I was hoping like we have this strategic planning and a planning type workshop coming up. So I'm hoping we can talk about this more because I think we would save a lot of time if we had a lot of the big ticket items already discussed as a council, even before any planning consultant was on board. Because whereas the MDP was a little more airy-fairy, I think land use is something that we see complaints and we know what the issues are. And I think council's a little better versed, I would say, on talking about it in advance than we were on the MDP. So I'd like to see more of that, because we've got a lot of experience here in the community, and a little bit better understanding of policy than even your average citizen. I know there will be small items that will come up with the public, but I think there needs to be a lot more balance of time to getting council to make decisions at the front end. That would be my thoughts. I am not a fan of what Calgary did. I will say that, and opening up. I think the dynamic of Turner Valley is that there's a lot of strong protectionism on R1 lots that we're gonna have to make some decisions on. And that's, so I am not in the Wild West side, but I'm not in the highly regulated side. And more middle ground. Slightly more to looser, but definitely not Wild West. So I think there needs to be some protection and certainty for landowners that came out for this, a certain lifestyle in some areas that needs to be protected, so. That's where I sit.
Okay, so let's bounce it to Adam.
Yeah, thanks, your worship. Just basing off what Carrie said there, would it be useful to, because we know we're splitting a projected cost for this over 2 years in the budget, right? So that's why we're kind of here tonight, but we've already got that listed, and of course, we may have to test and adjust once that RFP comes in. Does council want to just pause on this discussion, knowing that it'll be added to the budget? And then at the planning priorities workshop, we could actually add another 30 to 60 minutes to the day and dive right into it, because like to Councillor Holliday's point, really honing in on that council's philosophy of Wild West to regulatory, that will really hone up the RFP, and actually it'll really tie up a lot of things, so we could save a lot of time should council wish to do that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm in agreement with that.
Just a quick question, Adam. In our council committee of the whole in February, we were gonna have some of this discussion as well, right? So I would fully support doing that on our planning. If we can make that a longer date, why not?
Sounds good, your worship. Yeah, the idea there is we thought we would take the planning priorities workshop, get the big picture from council, hone it in to bring it back to committee of the whole to say, okay, this is what we heard. Does council want to push this forward for policy for council meeting? And then once we had that direction, we'd actually come back at a future council meeting with type policy.
Yep.
So sort of like a 3-step process.
Sounds good to me.
I like it.
So-
Okay,
Did you still want to gauge where we were at, so you have an idea?
I guess my
Sorry,
intention,
but I wouldn't mind, or to interrupt, I wouldn't mind actually taking a couple minutes if we can,
Yeah.
because this will help us shape that priorities workshop.
so it'll help me for the workshop in January, and also just making sure that the number that we do have identified in the budget that's coming back in 2 weeks isn't out to lunch. So I just need that litmus test of what you're currently comfortable with after looking at this information.
so do you want me to go down this
Yeah, just go
checklist
down.
or?
Sure.
Let's just go down the list. Ashley's good.
Yeah.
Then me, then you. then me.
Okay, so we've got kind of middle slash medians.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same as Cindy. I kind of want to start removing some of the red tape, making some things easier, but obviously don't want it totally Wild West, like kind of speaking to what John and Cindy said, I'm kind of right smack dab in the middle as well.
We need the regulations in certain places, but if we can remove red tape, let's get rid of it. And I don't know how challenging it'll be. But we need to identify those barriers sooner rather than later. With the current bylaws we have. What are the common pain points that are unnecessary to a certain extent, and eliminate those? So,
And you would know that fast, right?
Okay,
Yeah, I'm right in the middle as well. I like to get rid of some of this red tape, get some things moving in this town. But we also have to have regulations, keep everything looking tidy. As our tax dollars are high, we gotta show value to our locals. And yeah, but I don't want, I like the little bit of the Wild West, so I'm very much in the middle. I want structure and I want some freedom.
that's why we're in Alberta.
If I may, Councillor Fleming's comment kind of, another way that you can frame it potentially is very strong private property rights versus government oversight.
Correct. Yeah.
okay. Councillor Bain.
I'm on the opposite side of center from the others. I like a little bit more certainty. This is definitely what's permitted as opposed to, oh yeah, go ahead, but this. So that's where I sit, a little bit to the right center, I suppose.
Councillor Martin.
I'm in agreement with all my fellow councillors. I'm right in the middle there. The one area I would really like us to look at is direct control. There's some properties in town that they've had, property owners have had to come here asking, they want to build a shed on their property because it's under direct control. I would really like to see that loosened up. So it is not coming to us.
I think I said it before in front of you guys, I abhor direct.
Yeah,
But I'm also an administrator, so.
yeah, and I mean, direct control has also caused us a lot of trouble too.
It works.
Do you need to explain direct control?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
I think that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I guess for the most part, I sit with council. I would just like to see. I'd like to see the planning department be able to stick handle as many of these things without having to come before council and using up staff time and council time. I'd like you guys to have as much control as the MGA allows. If that is greater variance, allowances or however that's gonna go in, then, that's what I'd like to see, I think. Just give flexibility to planning and let them be able to make the decisions without having to involve us, as much. Not kind of, without, you know, releasing a lot of, responsibility. Of course, if there's something that should come to us, we'd like to see that, you know, new ASP, all those things. I know that they come anyways, but I'd like you guys to have the flexibility to be able to make the decisions instead of spending your time making staff reports to be presented to us for things. That's what I learned a lot in the MPC. Yeah.
And commission, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like there was a lot of time being utilized from admin to accomplish those nightly meetings, those, you know, monthly meetings that we had, and I'd like them to be able to do it on their own. Yeah,
Just a
final comments?
Just a really quick add. I like what Councillor Bain mentioned about certainty in planning, because we identified in the MDP that that's what we wanted.
Mm.
So if that's the lens we go through, I think we're gonna find the right balance personally. Because property rights have to be, that's the reality. That's why we're buying such land. But knowing what I can do on that property allows that certainty in planning, and that's only identified through a clear regulation. But not layers of red tape on that regulation.
No.
No.
So, you know, does it sound like I'm in the middle? No, I lean toward the property rights, the developer, the landowner, knowing what they can do before they buy. And not being able to change what they can do after they buy, unless there's a certain reason moving forward as to why they could. So.
Okay, well said, Cindy.
Yeah, your comments, I think that's how you get the right middle, is by having less discretionary uses and less variance
Yeah.
power and more it's allowed.
Yeah.
So
That's the permit.
I think that's where you find that happy middle is, this is your property, this is what you're allowed to do with it. And it's not, oh, you can apply for a discretionary secondary suite,
Exactly.
right? It's just allowed.
It's permitted. Yeah.
Right? Or that, you know, you can have a 10% variance or a 20% variance. I think if you're a little more open in what's allowed, then you can say there are no variances, right? So I think that's the way to balance the middle, is to have less questions, and less,
Or certainty.
More soon.
more certainty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's better said. Yeah, for sure.
Hit the nail on the head there, Mr. Bain. Love it. Cause I think we can get there.
Well, and I think if the back end of this, as Carrie's listed here, you know, that the automation component of it.
Yeah. Makes it easier to automate too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if
Because
it's-
there's less gray area for them to
Exactly.
have to go to someone like Carrie and say, hey, this won't let me pass it in because. And it's like, oh, we've got a variance that we need to approve for that.
Yeah.
Whereas if they just said this is discretionary or not.
Get rid of as much
Well, I know we talked
discretionary as
about that.
possible.
Yeah.
Last week with the city of Calgary, you just go onto their page and right there, you want this, and it's just a questionnaire drop down, and it sends you exactly where you need to go, buy this permit, and you're done. It doesn't even have to come to you.
Keep it as automated.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yes,
Ask again.
I have 2 questions left.
Yep.
Sorry.
That's okay.
So the first one is, beyond the permitting software, the other significant portion of budget, it can be this big or this big, is engagement.
Right, okay, so that was something that we forgot. Let me go to that, okay, I'm just gonna stick handle this and then I'll have council just. So we're looking at the public and stakeholder engagement piece? Yeah, okay, so the anticipated total somewhere roughly between 25 and 75,000. I'm just gonna go through some of these things and if councilors feel the need to speak to them, jump in. You know, maybe 1 or 2 counselors per, or if everybody has the need to speak to one of them, by all means, go ahead, or just a simple no or yes, it's probably okay. Could you speak more in terms of an engagement plan? Is that just like the initial launch to the community? Like just, hey, this is what we're doing. Do you guys want to be involved?
So those
Right.
of you that were around for the MDP, we did have the community consultation and engagement plan that was very thorough in terms of when the workshops were for the steering committee, what was going to be involved in them, what the public facing events were, what the venues, times, outcomes were, when you were going to be getting to what we heard report, and how the engagement was going to inform the final document. So those engagement plans that are typically prepared in a project of that or this magnitude, again, based on the proposals we received for the MDP, ranged somewhere between the $2,000 to $6,000 range.
What would your anticipated from your side of the aisle? What would your anticipated engagement be for something like the land use bylaw versus an MDP document? Do you think it would be higher or lower? Because that might give us some clarity on the expectation, because the MDP is a massive document, right? It not only, if it impacted residences, commercial, business, everyone, land use bylaw is gonna do the same, but it's a lot more finite.
Discreet.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is one of those very political decisions and why I want your input. I can say best practice is typically more is better. But we don't have more is better budget necessarily when we're trying to keep the taxes low.
Yeah.
So I'm cognizant of that.
Yeah.
Again, we've already done a lot of engagement through the MDP with varying levels of engagement throughout that process. I think that we could get away with a much more targeted engagement this time around.
Yeah.
And because they are those more finite elements and discrete elements, we might be able to get away with more surveys. So something that goes on our website, we push social media, you get word of mouth out, hey, you need to go do this survey because it's talking about things you can do in your backyard, which affects everybody who has a backyard, or things that you can do in your yard, period, front yard, backyard, right? So that might drive higher levels of engagement because people might feel more connected to it. Like, well, I want to be able to do that, so I need to get. Whereas again, the MDP is more motherhood and apple pie at times, and people are just like, but how, I don't feel connected to this, whereas oftentimes when we discuss those rubber hitting the road things in a land use bylaw, those regulations, people know what that looks like, feel like they've been affected by it directly. And so I'm hoping in my perfect world that we can drive more engagement through that, like, no, this affects if you can build a garage next year. This affects if you can have a fire pit. This affects if you can have a home lock. And the people are like, wait, what? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cindy.
I like that. I found with the MDP, it almost felt like until you actually got that draft, people didn't get it.
Yeah.
And so you spent all this time doing this engagement beforehand, asking, you know, these questions, but until they actually see what the rule is, that's when you got the developers knocking on your door saying, wait a minute, right? But I like the idea of targeted, you know, things that are really relevant to people. We just didn't get enough people at those in-person events to make them worth it. I'd rather see, you know, the smaller questions that we really do want. I mean, there's certain things that council's not gonna budge on, so there's no sense asking residents about it. But if there are a few things that people would be engaged in, I see surveys better. Yeah, I'd like to spend less on in person. I would like to have more time actually after like the first draft for, you know, people to send in comments or something like that.
That would be ideal, and that was the original timeline of the MDP that we know was.
Yeah, no, yeah. So until the actual draft is out, like I would say, I would back end more engagement after the draft is out.
Cause that's gonna stir engagement.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Okay, I agree with that. Counselor,
Carrie, what did you find when they did the pop-up during the NDP process?
Oh, is it light up?
Yeah, are you talking about the one that during the Christmas events? There was quite a lot of engagement. I wasn't there. I had other commitments that weekend. But the consultants and the staff that we did have there said that it was busy pretty consistently, especially when they were over at the Flare and Derrick. Like most in-person events for planning, you kind of end up being the catch-all, and it's like, oh, well, why is the town doing this with our utility rates? And why is the town doing this with snow removal? And I can't get ice time.
No, I didn't hear that when I was on the Saturday night. You know, people were, willing to write their comments, do the sticky.
Yes, and there was a lot of really good engagement on that end. And if the public is interested, there's what we heard report.
Yeah.
So I think from that regard, we might have reached more people trying to make those personal connections again with an MDP is more difficult because it's very broad and it doesn't feel tangible in a lot of ways until you see that document in front of you. And so I think having the in-person engagement for the MDP, especially so that they could have those conversations and work through what is an MDP and how might it affect you, the way you live, the way you work, you play, the way your business operates, I think had a lot of merit. I think the challenge with in-person is you either get the utility rates lynching town hall, you get the open house nobody comes to, or you get the event that they want to talk to you about anything but planning, or you get the one-off. From my experience, this community is very strange and we're the one-off on all in-person events that people actually come and talk intelligently and respectfully about the issue at hand. So when we did the open house, when we moved it from the pop-up to the open house and we held that at the Blair with the boards and the voting with the chips and stuff, that was for the industry ridiculously well attended. I can't believe how many people showed up and meaningfully contributed.
Yeah.
And filled out the forms and did the voting and had very good conversations with the staff. And a lot of that went directly into our final draft.
Whereas like the Dala planner, that was not successful at all.
That had limited reach and I would say wasn't as well taken up as we had hoped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, did the consultants also go into some of the coffee shops and just like start up casual conversations with anybody in there?
Note under the direction of the community consultation engagement plan, that was to be done by the members of the steering committee. And I didn't hear back from any member of steering committee that those activities occurred.
Okay.
Jonathan,
So I have a follow-up along the same line as Councillor Martin, but very targeted here. With the what we heard reports from the MDP, how much of that content can carry forward into the LUP?
So with what we have as the base in the MDP, we have our vision, we have our goals, we have our objectives. As we're building policy to support those objectives, some of the sections could be done, I'll say offline, right? So we could look at the section on environmental resilience when we're doing our flood prone areas policy. And I can come to you and say, this policy is based entirely off of this direction from the MDP. And if you're comfortable with that, cool, we'll stamp that and move on. I can take all policy for residential areas, align them with objectives from the MDP and say, here is your new 2 residential districts in alignment with the MDP. And if you're comfortable with that, we can stamp it and move on. But again, I don't necessarily have time for that, but I could direct a consultant to do that.
That's what I would expect.
Yes.
We direct the consultant to do that, and that picks up on what Councillor Holliday is saying. Once we have that work done, then we really get involved with community engagement. Because that way they'll find their time valuable. Instead of saying, well, I just answered this last year, what'd you do with my stuff I gave you last year? Because we've heard that before, right? So I think that'd be a good path to go down.
does that answer your question about engagement?
It's not nearly, in my opinion, I would
Well,
say,
let's just get
in a
some of the work
nutshell,
done first.
it's not nearly
Yeah.
as extensive. The engagement is not as extensive
No.
as what we had in the MDP.
Let's get some work done and then we'll look at the engagement piece, I think, later on in the process, I think is to summarize.
100%.
Again, I'm trying to scope the RFP so that when they
Yeah.
come back, they're not wildly off from what council's expectation is. So what I'm hearing is, potentially less in-person, utilizing surveys, utilizing the existing, what we heard and
Yes.
the objectives from the MDP
Yes,
and emphasizing that in the RFP for the consultant to move forward.
yes.
I would maybe plan to have a longer public hearing or maybe 2 nights. Like, Not just one on this one,
Because we can keep it open.
because we can keep it open. They would have to be fairly close together, but
Back nights.
yeah, because some people can't make that one. So yeah, I would plan for a bigger public hearing process. Yes.
So first one, 11 o'clock or something. 11:30 or
Well,
something.
that is what I heard with the, what we had in June. Some people, my neighbors were like, I was gone that week. Because it's their holiday.
Right.
So.
That was your first question, Carrie?
Okay, and then the second is, after all of this lovely conversation, are you still happy with where we have budget set coming back in 2 weeks?
Is that
Maybe I'll just jump on that workshop. So I think, because again, we're really gonna dive into this in January. Keep that budget as it is,
Yeah.
and then through the RFP process, because now we're looking over 2 years, right? So now we're talking about permitting software. That's an add-on. So maybe that's something that can be added to budget 27. So
Yeah.
I think that number's generic, and we may have to do some variance on the other side.
Okay.
So if that works for Lisa and Carrie.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much, Carrie.
I look forward to
Yes.
diving into so much more in January.
Well, then, appreciate all the work that you did to put in, and we look forward to the conversation in January as well. Okay, council, 2 easy ones. You guys wanna knock it out? Or you wanna drag it out? What do you wanna do?
Who's on this? Yes, take this one, make the.
No, we got the electoral boundaries first.
Yeah.
You can take, that's okay, they can take the next one. We've actually kind of seen this in detail, so I'll let CEO Davey speak to it. But this should be fairly straightforward when it comes to yay or nay.
Yeah, thanks, your worship. So I do have
There's-
proposed potential map, which has probably already got some tweaks to it coming out of the county council meeting today. So my recommendation to council is to pass a motion to support the draft letter that you have in your package, knowing that there's probably going to be tweaks to this map sent forward because we're trying to find that balance between Okotoks, the county and Diamond Valley. And I think obviously the county probably has the most skin in the game for this one because they have a lot of boundary areas. So for that, I recommend a flexible motion of support.
Okay. Any questions, council? Comments? Everyone gets one chance.
The comment I have is I want to thank Okotoks Council and their CAO, Ms. Vincent, for the work that they've done on this and spearheading that. So I just want to make sure that we're aware of that. And I can make a motion that we direct administration to work with the town of Okotoks and the county with the proposal that is before us. Understanding slight elements may need to be changed moving forward.
Thank you.
That council directs administration to work with Okotoks and Foothills County to finalize, I'll use that phrase instead, to finalize the proposed electoral map as was presented. That keeps it flexible, AM,
I think, yeah,
because it's got to be finalized, right? So that's open to change slightly.
I think so, your worship, and bearing in mind too, once the finalized package is there, I'll provide it to council to see an upcoming meeting, and then once it goes back to the electoral commission, see the final copy sometime next year, so I think that.
Yeah, because this isn't a motion that says this is the final copy. We're working to finalize the electoral. Perfect.
Okay. Just a question on the letter itself. I just want my email changed to the mayor at. The letter that you sent out has my B.Kelly one on it.
Got it, your worship,
Can you just fix that for me, please and thank you? Because I've been trying not to use that email after what Vernon and I experienced for the first 2 weeks.
There's some typos in there too, but it's not a big deal.
Okay, motion on the floor. All in favor? Okay, great. Is that it for that one?
That's how you're
I
working.
believe so. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I didn't expect anything else. FCSS, Ash, it's yours.
Yeah. Not to say about it, we went over a lot of applications. I think we found the right candidate. She seems absolutely lovely. Was very detailed in her application. We think she's gonna be a great fit on the board, so.
Perfect.
I'm gonna butcher her last name, but the council appointed Diamond Valley resident Kathy Riftwich to the FCSS board as a member at large for 4-year term.
Perfect. That's your first meeting.
Yeah, it was great.
Good,
It was great.
good. I thought-
Lots of lovely ladies there.
Good. Okay, council? That's an easy one. All in favor? Wonderful. Thank you for doing that work for us, Ash. And good luck with the board and your new member. Yeah,
Now you
everyone's okay? Okay.
I have one final motion, that our agendas for the rest of our term.
It's all.
Okay, I'm gonna adjourn at 7:19.